We're now going to talk about myth number 2, and let me just share this with you. So this is part of examining the myths that start in education and can misguide us in life. And myth number 2 is what I call the myth of the best student. This myth says, if you're the best student, you'll have the best life. And I ask you to just think about that for a moment. Do you think that's ever been implied in your life? Is that something that you have come to believe or that people around you seem to believe? I find that many people in all parts of the world have been taught to believe this. So let me take you through how I found that this is not accurate. All right, this idea that if you're the best student, you'll get the best life. The way the myth goes is this: be the best student, people say, right? So that you can go to the best colleges. By the way, there aren't best colleges, but that's for another time. So that you can get the best jobs. And then you'll make a lot of money and you'll be happy forever. So that's kind of the way the myth goes. It may be told a little differently here and there, but that's often the way it's implied, if not explicitly said. Now, one of the things that tells us that this myth is not true is that there is research that actually shows that the more that students pay attention to status items, right, and things like best job or making a lot of money, things like that are what would be considered status items. There's research by Judy Crocker and her associates that says that the more you pay attention to some of those status items, the more over the course of a semester you show symptoms of anxiety. So that's just one example. But also, when we talk about motivation, we'll be talking about the fact that money, while it's a motivator, is not a very high form or a very satisfying form of motivation. I mean, after a certain amount, you do have to have a certain amount of money first, but it might be a lot lower than you think it is. So this leaves people thinking, well, if I'm not the best, whether it's the best student or the best at this job or the best in this situation or the best at whatever this skill is, maybe I won't have the best life. And it can lead to feelings of a need to be more perfect. It can lead to what we call social comparison, comparing yourself to other people and how they're doing. And one of the things that research tells us is that when you do social comparisons, it tends to make you unhappier. So what do you do instead of telling yourself this myth? And by the way, I also say it's a myth because not only can it make you unhappier or more anxious, but there are lots of people, and you will find them in your world, I think, if you start asking around. There are many, many people who go to colleges that they think are the best or that people in the world might rank as the best. And many of those graduates don't end up very happy in life. One of my advisors, Dr. George Valiant, was at Harvard for many, many years and at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. And he followed a study of a group of men. Now, it was men because it was started back in the 1940s, and it was only men at the time at Harvard. But they followed these men for, now they're in their 80s and 90s, and these men were picked because they were considered to be the cream of the crop. I'll put that in quotes. Physically, mentally, intellectually, and even emotionally. And when they followed these men that were supposedly the cream of the crop over their lifetimes, what they found was that some of those men ended up very, very unhappy in life. And some of those men ended up very happy in life. And there was a complete spectrum. And they also had a study that they inherited. And Dr. Valiant looked at this as well. And this was a study of inner city boys around the age of middle school. And they took two sets of the boys and followed them for many years. And what they found was these inner city boys who often didn't have a lot of wealth or didn't necessarily have some of the things that the boys going to Harvard had from their families, for example. What they found was that these boys too ended up on a spectrum, very similar to what you saw from the ones that went to Harvard. So that's another point that you don't usually hear from schools that, and I don't want to pick on Harvard, I mean, we could pick on any school, but you don't usually hear that from schools that want to claim that they've got the best ratings. What they're actually evaluating is what they do before students come to their school, but they don't actually tell you how do those people thrive in life. And you'd be surprised to discover that it's all over the map. So this is a myth. And if it's a myth that you've been told or that you believe, it may be one that you want to examine because it can cause anxiety and unhappiness. And what you can do is you can ask yourself, do I choose to continue to believe this? Do I know for sure this is true? You could start asking around among family and friends. Do you know somebody that was a great student that isn't very happy? Do you know someone that went to a reunion at a school that's considered to be top-notch, let's say, or who made a lot of money? And just start asking around, and you will find that there are examples all around you that could indicate to you that this myth is not entirely true. So it's something you can examine for yourself. And we will pause this right here.